All right, we're going to get started in about 1 minute, about a minute and a half. Welcome. We're going to talk about free online resources tonight. All right, 1 more minute to let people get online, and then we'll get started. All right, good evening. This is Jim Howard with Trinity Security Allies. Thank you for coming out tonight. We had our membership meeting last week where we had members only that came in, and we'll talk about how you can become a member later on. But during the meeting, we talked about how to kind of do your own little investigation on somebody that comes into your church. Now, we want to make sure that you understand that everything that we show you tonight is really confidential. If we, you can call me and talk to me about it. This is not bashing a particular person that we're going to be talking about. What we're going to be doing is just kind of showing you some of the things that we are able to do and able to look at. If it was one of these things of where this person had left the church, I would tell you that we need to be watching out for him. But he after we spoke with him, he has come back to the church. So we're really kind of hoping and praying that the Spirit is working on him. I still am a little concerned. And if he ends up going someplace else, then this will be one of these of where, well, if he leaves our church and never comes back, I'll be talking to you again about it. That this is one of these type of people that we really need to be paying attention to when they come into our church. Now, as I've said this before, I've talked about this 100 times. Every time we talk about networking, we talk about this is not gossip. This is one of these scenarios that I'm truly hoping that maybe this person will kind of, I don't know if the right word is shape up, but maybe the Spirit will soften his heart, and then we will have, you know, kind of a great person to have at our church. But right now, there's still some issues that we're facing, and I don't know that he's still telling the truth. And this is one of these type of things where I do not believe that he's a threat or something like that. But what I do believe is that he is still kind of a wolf in sheep clothing, and we just have to pay attention to him. So we're going to get started talking. I'm going to go through this thing. This is kind of how we do things. This is kind of an investigation. This is kind of how we would look at a person when a person comes into our church that causes us some concern. And you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about when we get started on this. So on Sunday, November the 19th, 2020, any Sunday, any normal Sunday that we, kind of expected, we had a guy that showed up in a lab coat and hospital scrubs. Now, well, and let me just continue on with it. You could tell that he was in probably his 70s, and he had a mask on and he had a baseball cap on. But the thing that caught me more than anything else was that he had on his lab coat, he had the word psychiatrist and he had his name underneath it. And so I couldn't really see the name because of the coat kind of folding over, but I could see the word psychiatrist. Now, in my time, I have known a few psychiatrists. I've even been to a few. I'm not ashamed of it. Sometimes we need counseling. If you think that you're okay at all times, then God bless you. But every once in a while, we need counseling. So I have never ever seen a psychiatrist show up at an office with a lab coat on. I just have not. And when I talk to people from my medical team, they said they had never seen a psychiatrist in a lab coat. So right away, this is something that does not look right. It does not look right. So I saw him as he was coming in. I watched him go to our information table, and I saw him talk to our Nicole, who is one of the girls that is a staff member of the church and works on helping people find out things about the church. So as the conversation went, it went for a little while, and then he walked away, and I got her attention and had later on I went to her and said, Nicole, can I ask you a couple of questions? And she said, sure. The gentleman in the lab coat, and she goes, oh, nothing. He just came up and asked me questions about the church. He said he had gone to Willow Creek and that he was in the neighborhood and was looking for, a church to attend. I said, okay. Did he ask you? I asked her, did he ask you if we had a singles group in the church? And she just stopped and she looked at me and she goes, he did. And I said, did he say an age group? And she looked at me again and said, no, he didn't give an age group, but he said he loved working with millennials. Well, we kind of watched him for a few more weeks, and he came back that afternoon. We had Light Up Trinity, where we turn on our Christmas lights for the church to get ready for the Christmas season. And he showed back up again, and he did a couple of other things that made us really want to pay attention to him. One of the things that he did was he just walked over and we were making popcorn, and he grabbed a basket of popcorn and just started walking around passing it out, introducing himself as Dr. Sidney Hines. And so as this was going on, we kind of had to approach him and say, hey, please, we're only going to let staff, nobody knows you yet. Oh, well, I'd love to get to know everybody. So one of my safety team members was sitting next to him and ended up having a conversation with him. And we found out that he only deals with domestic violent victims. So this concerns me also because it just tells me what type of person this may be that I'm looking at. Well, he continued to come back multiple times. And finally, he filled out one of our contact information or interested in joining our church card, which you see right here. So at that moment in time, I started to do my own investigation. Now, let me explain something to you about law enforcement. In law enforcement, the only way that we can truly actually run somebody, and when I'm talking about running arrest records or running license tags or different things like that, is if I have a case number. And when I say case number, that means that you've made a report. So if you haven't made a report with law enforcement, then it's very difficult for them to run or do anything for you. Now, at this point in time, he was just a person that just didn't seem it just we it was just didn't look right. It's one of those that we were looking at this and we're thinking to ourselves, what have we got ourselves into? So once I got his information, I started doing my own investigation. And this is what I would recommend to you. Now, I'm going to show you a few websites that we use all the time. And we will, when we send out our follow up letter for all of you that have attended tonight, we're going to attach all those websites so that you'll have them that you can use at any time. So I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint for a second, and I'm going to go into my computer. So if you do not see it, please send a quick message to Wendy, but I'm going to show you my actual internet that I am working on as I would be working up this case. So I'm going to share the screen again, but this time I'm going to pull up the internet. All right. Now, at this point in time, all I really have, and I'm hoping you'll see my Google page, all I have is his name, and his name was Sidney Hines. but I do have his date of birth. His date of birth was 1/19/1949. So if I look at it, that tells me that he's in the 71, 72 age range. So the first thing that I did was I went to Google and I typed in his name. And you'll see here that it saved the search. So I did, because it might be a common name, I kind of left it to Florida. I didn't really want to go any all across the United States because, like I said, I would probably be looking at it a lot. So I just typed in his name and I said Florida. So right off the bat, I start to see things that really concern me, that a Florida man charged with impersonating a senator to get out of paying taxes. So to get out of paying a loan. So it was right off the bat, I had something that now this guy is really a person of interest in our church. So as I clicked on it, I mean, you click on these, it gave me the article about how this person said that he was a senator and that he was arrested here, and of 5 counts of impersonating a federal officer or employee. So I was really okay. So now this has my attention. So that's the first thing. That's the first thing. Like I said, you can go straight to the internet and you can look and see if you find something. So this was 5 years ago, 67 years old, from Newport Richey. This appears to be the person that I'm looking for. This appears to be the one that has now walked into our church and claimed to be a psychiatrist wearing a lab coat and hospital scrubs. So the second thing I did was I went to a webpage that I use called floridaarrest.org. Now, I found out something very interesting today, and I'll show you this in a minute. But this is not only Florida. I found out that I can use this for any state that this person may be from. If this person tells us they're from Virginia, like where I'm from, I can go back and I can look for this person and see if I can find them in Virginia. And I'm going to show you how this works. So anyway, we went in and we put in Sydney's name, Sydney Hines, and we did a search. In Florida, we did a search. So what we start to see is we start to see our person that's in the church. I don't want to say suspect. That sounds bad. But what I also noticed, now not all these are Sydney Hines. This is not him. This is him right here. But what I also noticed was that Sydney changes his appearance. And so this was something that concerned me also, because he may come to our church and look one way and come to another church and look another way, because this is Sydney here. We can see him. This is kind of what he looks at like right now. If you were to see this face at your church, you would see it. He's now 72 years old. And out at the bottom of it, it tells you what he was charged with. So now as I look at this, because of his age, his date of birth here, I can see his date of birth. This is what he filled out on the card that I showed you. I can also show you that as I go across, I see that this is him, date of birth, same date of birth. But like I said, what I noticed was this was him, same date of birth. This was him, same date of birth, same address. Once again, so he changes his appearance. He changes his appearance. And this is something that you need to be paying attention to, because he may leave my church and come to your church looking completely different. This is him once again. Now, of course, these are different ages. This is 2008. This one here is 2012. So yes, there is a progression of age also. But if you notice, there is also one of these type of things that we have to pay attention to, that he does look different. So if I were to see him today like this, but yet the only picture I had of him was this one, or this one, or even this one, you need to click on it and make sure that you look at the date of birth, the address that he filled out was close to this address right here, and his date of birth. So we know that we have the right person. We know that we have the right person. So now on these, it also does tell you what the arrest was for. So you can look at these arrests. and you can see. So now, does this mean this person can't come to our church? No, we're all sinners. We have all sinned. I'm just showing you how to start to look at people that are coming into your church. So then the second thing that I did was I went to the Florida Department of Corrections, because to me, one of the things that I've noticed here in this, and this is an open state, anybody has access to this. This is just not a Jim Howard thing because he was law enforcement. This is anybody can access this. So, as a church safety leader, maybe these are some of the things that you need to pay attention to. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Let God be your guide, because if you start searching all the people that are in your church, I have a problem with that because you don't have a reason to. But that also kind of is a sign of power and ego, because you know you can do this. I think you only do it when you have a situation of where you need to see what's going on with a person. So anyway, in offender search, you can search all corrections databases. And so it pops up and says, put in the name. Here we go again. So like you said, see, I've already filled these out, and you can submit a request. Now, what this does is it goes out and it looks at all of, like, supervised visitation or supervised probation. It looks like all the if there's in right now, if they're in the penitentiary or in the corrections right now. Now, I see that there is one inmate release search results. And as I go and look at it, I see that this is my Sidney Hines because of his date of birth. I can see that. So with that, I can click on this. Once again, a completely different picture. I mean, similar, the long hair and stuff like that, but it's grayer. It's a little bit different of a person. It does not look like what he looks like today. But of course, the arrest date on this was 2007, and it tells you more about his charges. Now, this is kind of important. When you're looking at this is where you start to see whether or not this person may be a violent person, especially in the state charges and especially if they've gone to the penitentiary. So as I go through this, I look at the offense date, and they give me the date reflects covered periods of incarceration with Florida Department of Corrections since January of 1993. So as I go through this, I can see what type of person I'm looking at when he's coming into my church. And one of the things that catches my attention is possession of firearm. Now, if you notice, though, let's be realistic here. It's a date of 1991. That's a few years back. So do I think he's still carrying a gun? I don't think so, but it is in the back of my mind, and I'm paying attention to it. And I'm watching this the next time I come in contact with him. Now, what I also recommend that you should do when you have something like this is that you look at Facebook. Well, let me go to one more. Let me go to one more site that I feel like you should go to. This is giving me a hard time here. Before we go to Facebook, I want to pull this over because I forgot this one, but because we just had this situation happen in the church also. So Florida Sexual Offender Register, because one of the reason why I say this is because he was talking to younger women in the church. He wanted to talk to victims. He wanted to talk to women that are hurting, that are vulnerable right now. That was his forte. So when I went in here and looked for him, I did not see him. Of course, now as I type this in, we'll see if he does show up. And it says no results found. Now, you can do these searches. You can do these searches on different ways. You can do a search on location, like in your neighborhood. So if I come in here and do a 3-mile radius on my address, it's going to give me a list of sexual offenders and if I click on it, Find it hard to believe that there's not one in my neighborhood. I mean, I'm happy, but this kind of tells me that in the 1 mile radius that I asked for, it doesn't have any. But let's go back. I want to look at something. And we talked about this. We talked about this before. In your church, you should be doing this. In your church, you should be looking at things like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in our church address. And I'm looking, and the radius I'm looking for, I apologize, this is running really slow. Let me see if I need, I'm just going to search and see what it does. So this gives me a visual of how close to the church, how close to our neighborhood we have sexual offenders and predators. Now, I'm not really, this isn't really running as fast as I want it to. We'll come back to it in a second. But what I want to look at now is I want to go over, because I think this is very important. I think it's also important that you look at the Facebook page. I think that when you have a person that, and I'm going to talk really a lot about Facebook right now, but when I come over to a Facebook page and I look at it, I kind of see things like this. I really don't know what to think about it, especially since he's come into our church with a disguise on. Right now, to me, he's wearing a deceptive disguise. When I see him coming in a lab coat, calling himself a psychiatrist, calling himself a doctor, he also called himself a Lord. When I see these things, I think that this person is a wolf in sheep clothing, that he's coming in and he's being very deceptive. So one of the things that we did, the reason why I pulled him aside and started talking to him, and see, here's some other things that you might, I mean, it kind of gives you an idea of what he's saying. He's telling us that he's a former minister. He's a former director and psychiatrist at the Refuge Domestic Center. I just, these are things that I have a hard time with. And then I'm not even going to go into some of his friends, because I am concerned at what I see, and I'm not going to show it on the screen. But what I want to say here is that Sidney started to talk to younger ladies. He talked to a 14-year-old, and then he talked to a 10-year-old. And once that happened, we said, that's it. We need to speak to him. We need to talk to him. Now, this goes back to like I said, when somebody comes in deceptive clothing, they need to be watched and they need to be paid attention to. And you need to start doing your own investigation on this. So I want to look at one thing and see if this ever popped up, and it didn't. So I don't know what's wrong right now with this. So this should really come up real fast. Now this would, like I said, this gives you an idea in your area. Yes, something's wrong with the page right now. So we'll continue on. Okay. So after he spoke to the two juveniles, we went to him and started talking to him. And we said, I want you to understand, this is the way we should be doing this. This is our verbal de-escalation. I could have walked up to him and said, you're a liar, get yourself out of this church, but that's not what we're trying to do. And that's not what we're supposed to do as Christians. So I pulled him aside and I asked him where his office was, and he couldn't give me an answer. And then he said he didn't work in offices. He worked at refuge centers, and that he was a psychiatrist at a refuge center. Well, then I told him that I knew more about him than what he's leading on. I said, I've done my homework and I know a lot about you. And so I said, and I want you to understand that this deceptive costume, this deceptive outfit that you have, you need to not wear it back to church. That you need to come in, if you want to come in, because we are a church of redemption. We believe in redemption. We believe in the grace that Jesus gives us all. We all are sinners. And we come to the church and we come to fellowship with other Christians who are other sinners. But if you're going to come back to the church, you need to come back as the real Sidney Hines. Do not please come back in this outfit again, because I know that you're not a psychiatrist. I know that if you're working at some of these places, I'm really surprised with your history. Now, I didn't look at him and say you're a criminal. I didn't look at him and say that we don't want you back. I just laid down what the rules were. And the rules are we don't allow costumes inside our church. That's basically what he was wearing, was a costume. So because of that, I told him, you're more than welcome to come back, but you just have to come back as the real person, the real you, dressed in real street clothes. Well, he didn't come back. He didn't come back for the whole Christmas. I mean, all the services we had in Christmas. This was the week before Christmas that I spoke to him. I was hoping that he would come back for Christmas. But the weekend after Christmas, he showed back up again. And he showed back up in street clothes. And we were really, I mean, it was like, okay, great. This is fantastic. But I can't make this stuff up. I have to tell you what happened. He showed up in street clothes. He had on a Christmas sweater, and he went into the worship center and started playing around with his Christmas sweater and turned on Christmas lights on his sweater. Like I said, you can't make this up. So he is in the middle of our praise and worship when the lights are low, flashing Christmas lights. So I had one of the ushers go over to him because I didn't want to go over and hit him again. You know, we'd already had one conversation. So I had one of the ushers walk over and tell him that the lights were disruptive. They were distracting other people. There were complaints about it. Please turn it off, which he did, which is great, which is fantastic. After service was over with, I went to him and said, Sidney, welcome back to the church. If there's anything I can do, please let me know. If I can help you with any way, let me know. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Now, does that mean we take him off our radar? No, we're still watching, because when I talked to him about his outfit, I also told him that it was inappropriate for him to talk to any child that is not his, or you do not know the parents. If you know the parents and they allow you to talk to the child, that's one thing. But you cannot just walk up and start talking to children. So this is something that you need to make sure that you lay the ground rules. We told him, these are the rules if you want to come back to the church. He is back at the church. He has come 3 weeks in a row. I'm excited. I hope he gets involved. Now, I'm going to finish the story talking about another incident that we had. We had a male come in, take his child to the children's ministry. Children's ministry noticed him right off the bat because he seemed a little aggressive with his child. They made a comment to the safety team. It was brought to my attention. By the time I could catch up with this guy, because I wanted to get a look at him, I saw that he was talking to one of our pastors, and he was upset. You could tell that he was upset. So I stayed in the area with the pastor, and we talked, and we had a conversation. So he had a conversation with the pastor, and the pastor said that afterwards, he said that the guy was upset. The church had asked him to leave before, that he had, just some troubles and issues and things like this, but he wanted to come back to church here. He went into the worship center. We had one of our guys sit close to him in the vicinity, watched him through the service. He participated. He seemed like he was really interested in the service. And so when we got his name and his information, and when I ran him, this is where he popped up in the sexual offender page. So because of that, that really was a red flag to us. So I started doing a little more investigations, and I found out where he was arrested and different things like that. It was a few years back. We have found out that there's no restrictions on him. So apparently he did what he was supposed to do, and the courts have let him kind of, live his life. But here's the thing I want to talk about. And I'm not going to pull him up because right at this moment in time, we want to work with him. If he's angry at our church and we want to get it right, we want to make sure that he's okay. We want to work with him. So, but here was the thing. When I went to his Facebook page, I was inspired. Okay. I was inspired because I'm looking at this guy. I'm looking at a picture of this guy, and it looks like he's working in a call center. Now, I don't know about you, but I think call centers are probably one of the hardest jobs ever. But yet his note on his Facebook page, right next to that, the picture of him at the call center was, I am so blessed to have a job. Thank you. And this was recent. This was real recent. Thank you, Lord, for giving me a job, this opportunity to prove myself, this opportunity to share your story, my opportunity to, it just went on and on and on. And then as I started looking through his Facebook, his pictures were mainly of him and his sons doing all sorts of things, watching television together, reading together. He's reading to them at nighttime. As I scroll through his post, I see all these different posts where all it is about giving praise to God. And I come across a picture. He was in the Army. I come across a picture of him. He got discharged out of the Army, but he's at a gym working out, and he's standing there with this gentleman, and he says, this is Commander so-and-so. He was the greatest guy that I ever worked for, shaking his hand. So what do I want to do with this guy? I want to get him back. I want to work with him. So we're hoping that he comes back. If he comes back, one of our safety team members who's really good with talking to people and trying to help them out and get things, started and see if there's anything we can do for him, invite him to, a small men's group, but get him involved. This is the thing that you have to also remember also. Does that mean that it wipes clean what has happened? No, it's still out there and it's still in the back of our minds. But we know that he will never work in our children's ministry. We will have to pay attention to when he goes into the children's ministry. We will have to pay attention to when he's around juvenile women. But these are the type of things that we're working with. And these are the type of things that we're trying to work and share. So, like I said, I will be sending out this information. I hope you understand this is not to bash anybody. This is not to talk bad about anybody or anything like this. This is a situation that we have going on in our church. I share this information with you because you come out here for church safety. I'm not sharing this information that you can now go and find this person and talk bad about them. I don't want that to happen. I truly do not. I did want to show you one other thing. I was looking at this because it says Florida, but I got to thinking about Virginia because of arrests that I had made long ago in Norfolk. So I pulled up this person's name and I found out today that this also has Virginia information in it. So you see all these states that it has, right? Well, you see the states. It's all 50 states. If you're from out of state, please check out this. You can put in florida.arrest.org, but like I said, you may find it where it says virginia.arrest.org. I don't know. But I went to Virginia and I did a search, and there's the guy right there. So I know this works for Virginia because, like I said, this was a guy that I arrested when I was with Norfolk. Of course, it was a long time ago. We both aged really, we both have aged a lot. So, but this tells me that Virginia records are in here, current Virginia records, because this is 2016. I'm not really for sure how far it goes back, but there are Virginia arrest records in here also. So I'm going to open it up, Wendy. If there's anybody that has any questions, anything they want to talk about, I am here. I'm going to stop the share.
As of right now, I don't have any questions or comments. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A.
Tony raised his hand, which Tony, you got ask the question on Q&A. Click on Q&A, Tony. Ask the question.
He might have just been waving at you.
Oh, okay. Well, Tony, if you're waving, hey.
All right, I don't see any questions.
I'm only going to give you a little while longer, then I'm going back to PowerPoint. Okay.
All right, go back to PowerPoint. If they
All
have
right.
questions, they can call us.
All right. If they have questions, Q&A right down here at the bottom of the screen. All right. Let me share the screen again. All right. I cannot tell you how excited I am about what's about to come up. I am so excited about this. I get to work with my good friend, Alan Wilkett. We're going to be traveling around the area, and we're going to be talking about human trafficking and identifying red flags in your houses of worship. He and I were talking just the other day, and there was a newspaper article that came out in our alerts of a couple, a pastor and his wife, who were doing human trafficking out of their church. They'd been doing it for several years. So this happens inside the church. And when we talked about it, we talked about the predators that we've seen inside our church, but he's going to tell you a whole bunch of information. I'm only going to be talking a little bit. I know y'all are happy about that, but y'all need to make sure that you have these churches packed with your safety team members, your children's ministry members, any pastors, any of these, anybody that has a concern of the children and the safety of the church, they need to be here. They need to be at this. So we've got 4 right now that we're doing. We're going to be at Vineyard Christian Church on February the 9th from 7:00 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. That's at 375 South Broad Street in Brooksville. That's Hernando County. On February the 11th, from 7:00 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., we're going to be at Generations Christian Church. We're going to be inside the gathering at 1540 Little Road in Trinity, Florida. On February the 13th, Saturday, not September, I'm getting ahead of myself, between 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m., we're going to be at Scott Lakes Baptist Church, 5811 Scott Lake Road in Lakeland, Florida. That's Polk County. And then on February the 25th, Thursday night, from 7:00 to 8:00 p.m., we're going to be at New Day Christian Church, 2212 Peachland Boulevard in Port Charlotte. I cannot tell you how important this is that y'all get people out there. We need to be talking about this. This has to be a conversation because of what Alan has seen. Alan retired from Pasco County after working with their human trafficking task force. That was a federal task force. Y'all got to come out and hear this. This is incredible stuff. This is really good stuff. So they're out on our webpage. Go to trinitysecurityallies.com under events. You'll see it. Make sure that you go out and you check this out. Now, our next members only Zoom meeting will be on February the 18th. It was a great meeting last week. I got to say, the people that came out, we had a lot of good conversation, a lot of good information that flowed back and forth. We did talk about basically the same thing that we did right now, but there's a lot of information out there. So please come out. If you, I'm going to tell you how to be a member of the Trinity Security Allies team. It's real easy. Pre-order today. We're close. Gosh, I was hoping it would be over with now, but the book is finished. We're just trying to figure out who is going to print it for us. We're working on that right now. But you can receive a paperback copy of God's Unseen Plan for $25 donation, or receive a hardcover copy of God's Unseen Plan for a $30 donation. Now, these are donations to Trinity Security Allies, and because of your donation, we'll send you the book. Later on, they will be for sale, but right now, this is donations to help us out as far as getting this out to other churches and to other safety team members. Like, this is not a book. Let me explain something, because this kind of was brought to my attention the other day. This is truly not a book about church safety. I mean, we talk about it in the end of it, but this is how God has been planning this from the day that I was born. And it is I cannot say enough about the journey that I went through. And every time I look at this book, I open up to everything. I lay it all out there because I want you to see, as bad as I was, God has a plan for all of us. And I used to want to be perfect. but I continue to mess up and do something, just losing everything. And I can only find perfection in God's grace. So you want a copy, let us know. You can get it off the webpage. All right. Y'all all know about our Facebook Lives. We talk about issues that are facing the country right now and things that we see that are going to be facing and coming up against the churches. There's a lot of stuff going on, folks, right now. I'm going to tell you, we're going to be talking about it next week. We're going to be talking about some of the things that have just recently happened that are going to affect the churches. There's no way around it. And the thing that we have to be prepared for is, how do we get ready for it? It's going to happen. So Sunday night, Facebook Live, come out 8:00. I'm out there for 30 minutes to talk to you. And you know where you can find me. All right. Free resources. We had the Trinity Security Allies free resources, putting together a safety plan, developing a safety team, carrying weapons in church, and Sunday morning, what to look for. We've talked about putting some other out there. We just haven't got around to it because we've been doing all these other things. But you can get these right now. If you know of a church that's interested in putting together a safety team, before they go out and spend any money at all, tell them to go right here and pull down these free resources and just look over these things. Then contact us to see if we can help them.
Hey, Jim, we got a couple of questions really quick. Can I stop you for just a second?
Of course you can.
Sure. So Tony's wanting to, Tony, if I do a search in Pinellas, will they show the pictures of the person I'm looking for? And Tony, that may be something, if need be, Jim can work with you online with that.
Tony, Pinellas will not. For some strange reason, the sheriff out there does not want to show the pictures, but there is a way around it. And I need to look it up for everybody, but there is a way around that. So Pinellas County doesn't, but at least it will give you the arrest information, especially if you know the person's date of birth. So a lot of times you can find the date of birth on Facebook because people like to put it out there. And this is kind of sometimes the way that we find out that we have the right person, by going to Facebook and getting that information. But Pinellas County is a little strange on that. And that's just sad because I used it a lot. And I liked it when I was on the police department because of all the different counties. Let me just go back real quick. I want to show you this. Let me stop this for a second, go back into it. I want to show you real quick something in this. One of the things I think is very important. See, now this is showing me what counties in Virginia that they're pulling information out. Okay. So that tells me Virginia Beach, Norfolk, these are the main areas. Hampton is not participating. Chesapeake is. So I can see who is participating and who is not. Now, when I go back to Florida, this was the reason why I liked using it when I was on the police department, because when I look at counties, okay, it's got to refresh. These are all the counties that it has in here. So I can go to Polk County right now and see recent arrests in Polk County. Now, I have heard people, and they have more time than I do, go and sit and look at this over the past 24 hours who's been arrested and see some of their church members. I don't have that time right now, but you can do that. You can do that. So this is just one of these that's very good. It's, like I said, searching this many counties in the state of Florida, that's that at the tip of your fingertips. Florida is an open state, and that's one of the reasons why I love Florida here. So, but I'll help you with that, Tony.
All right, we have one more comment from Gary Haynes. He has an Android sex offenders app, also searches sex offenders in the current area by address or by name. He just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, send us that information. We'll be more than happy to put it out there. So,
thanks, Gary. If you can email that to me, that'd be great. I'll put it out in the follow-up.
Okay,
that's it.
How do you become a member? It's really easy. Sign up today to access our online church safety training library. That's on YouTube for $25 a month. Now, that gives you live online training that you can access, a membership, and a ticket to our annual church safety conference. And plus, it supports us. And that's what listen, y'all have been fantastic of supporting us. We just want to keep it going. Now, talk to your church. If you can get your church to become a member, it's $125 a month or $1,200 for the year. And that includes 2-hour training sessions or a full day training. And that includes everything where we come in and do threat profiling, situational awareness, verbal de-escalation, or the laser shot simulator. And I'm going to tell you right now, everybody that has done the simulator will agree that it gets your heart rate going. It puts you in positions that you never thought about before. So it's really something that you really need to be looking at. Okay. Scheduled phone calls, 5 tickets to the annual Church and Safety Conference, discounted full strength and weakness assessment with recommendations detailing priorities in your houses of worship. And safety team members have full access to our online library and monthly member calls. We've started a new podcast, myself and Kevin Haggerty. It's called The World Through a Christian Lens, True Christian Talk. We're on Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. You can find us on Facebook or on YouTube. We put these out here. You need to be listening to these because this is not talking about church safety. This is talking about what's happening in this country from a Christian point of view, not to where we're leaning so far right that we're telling you to take up arms and get ready, or so far left that everybody's a racist. We talk about the truth. We talk about God. We talk about the world and how we should be reacting to what we're seeing out here as a Christian. So come join us. If you don't get to catch us on Thursdays at 11 o'clock, go out and look at it on YouTube and like us and subscribe, because that helps us stay out there. It shares that information. YouTube, that's where we have our trainings now. So you can go out there and look for them. Any other questions?
There are no other questions, but I will send links for the memberships and also for the True Christian Talk as well. And anything else that we need to send out.
My safety team brothers and sisters, we are in a changing time. It is very concerning right now what is going on. We need to be more vigilant, and we need to be paying attention to those that come into our church. Since we've started back at church, we've had multiple issues or multiple situations. Let me put it that way. I don't want to say issues. Multiple situations which has caused us to be on guard because of what we've seen right in front of us. It's not going to get any better right now. It really isn't. It's not the government as much as I am worried about the social reaction to Christianity. That's what I'm worried about more than anything else. And we're going to talk about more about this next week, where we talk about some of the executive orders that have been written. Most of the executive orders pertain to federal entities or schools or things like that. But then there's the public opinion. And if the federal government is saying that this is what the federal government has to do, people are going to be looking at us and telling us that this is something that we have to do as a church. And we got to fight it. We've got to be prepared. So I'm going to be talking to attorneys. I want to get attorneys to come on and talk about some of these things that we're seeing and some of the things that are concerning us. And I need y'all to stay strong, and we need to band together, because if we don't join together, then we're out here all by ourselves, and nobody is an island. And there's so much more power when you're together. So please, thank you for coming out tonight. Be safe. God bless you. God bless this country. And we'll talk to you real soon. Have a great night.